etc. And we come back to green flag racing. Paul Tracy, the leader. Scott Goodyear runs in second. In third, Nigel Mansell. There's Tracy on the backstretch.
Remember, at Phoenix, Tracy had this kind of superiority, built a 2-lap lead, and crashed into Jimmy Vasser. Or rather, he crashed trying to pass Jimmy Vasser. Threw away a very big lead. I can imagine that Roger Penske is trying to calm him down. When I was Roger's junior driver many, many years ago, he would lean in the window to me but just before the race started and say, "Don't go berserk and don't get involved with anything." And I imagine he's saying much the same now, 30 years later, to this star.
Tracy is using a groove on the track right now, Paul. It's very similar to a qualifying groove. The track is basically settling in. It doesn't seem to be slippery in any spot. So Tracy's using, he's got clean air. He's got no traffic right now. Good qualifying groove.
Here's a race summary as we are just beyond the halfway point. 101 miles for this summary. We're actually at 102 now. And Scott Goodyear has been trying to handle up Roberto Guerrero so that he can get back in contact with Paul Tracy. But this has been very costly for Scott Goodyear because he's fallen about a half a second a lap behind while he continues to fight with Guerrero.
Tracy is making hay while the sun shines. When he's got a clean racetrack to run, he's really trying to put some distance between him and Scott Goodyear. There's Robbie Gordon in the black 14 car.
Robbie, who ducked into the pits, as we mentioned, got a little extra fuel, maybe a change to the suspension, now in pursuit of Raul Boesel. It is a fight for fifth place, and Robbie's closing in.
I can watch Boesel's car as he comes down the front straightaway. Now, we know it's a little bumpy. The pavement's not too level here, but watch Boesel's car, and it switches as he comes down the straightaway. We'll see it again pretty soon.
Robbie Gordon has been in the pits twice. Maybe has 3 or 4 laps ahead of the rest of the field in terms of fuel.
This is Emerson Fittipaldi on the left of the screen. Raul Boesel on the right. There's Fittipaldi. Right now, the second running Penske car. Behind, of course, Paul Tracy. Boesel moving in for the first time in several laps, more in an attack mode. He'd been falling back after he initially lost the lead.
The fight here is for fourth. Top of the order, Tracy, Goodyear, Mansell, and then this battle for fourth place between Fittipaldi and Boesel.
Boesel has recaptured the setup that he had earlier that made him superior. He's starting to move well again now on this high groove, right behind Emerson Fittipaldi.
Boesel moves to the outside while Robbie Gordon closes in as well. Jack, did they make some good changes on Boesel's car? It looks like it's working better.
And Paul, I'm very confused. I want to ask Bobby Unser. Normally, if you scuff off a right rear, I would think you'd want to stiffen the bars, the onboard adjustment you can make. But Dick Simon and crew have instructed Boesel to loosen the bars. They've gone to full loose, and it seems to have worked, Bobby.
Well, what's happening there, Jack, is it's called roll stiffness. They're loosening up the front and the rear bar together, letting the car lean over, theoretically getting a little bit more side bite. That's what they're chasing right now.
I stand corrected and educated.
And those are all adjustments that can be made in the cockpit. There are 2 little levers down at the driver's left hand that allows him to change the stiffness of the front anti-roll bar. We'd call it a sway bar in a passenger car, or the rear anti-roll bar, right?
Yes, and I think the most important thing for everybody to realize, Paul and Jack, is the track changes. So the race car has to be changed as we go along in the races. And that's the reason you see them. They didn't make mistakes at the start. They're just changing to match the track.
You talk about roughness, that's Danny Sullivan's steering wheel. That little white line marks the center of the wheel when the wheels are pointed straight for Danny. They do that so that he can bring it back into line when they are coming into the pits. But look at how both Danny and the wheel bounces.
In the old days, before ground effect, a rough track like this meant very little. Today, because the springs are so stiff and the cars ride so low, all of the roughness of the track is transmitted right up to the driver. You can see how much Danny's helmet bounces around. It's a rough ride out there.
And for all of this bouncing around, the best that Danny is able to manage is 22nd position right now.
You know, Paul, sometimes people wonder why. Danny is a good driver. There's no question about that. But here's a car running 22nd position.
Goodyear, second place car.
There's an unexpected problem. Obviously, this is going to be a powertrain, probably an engine problem, because the car doesn't look bent from here.
Just all of a sudden, as we look down on the Walker Motorsports pit, and they look to try and determine what happened there.
Not a fuel problem. They were well inside of their window.
So a serious problem as the yellow comes out because of the precarious positioning of Scott Goodyear's car.
He's just sitting there getting mad, thinking about what just happened to him, just taking him out of competition.
So Scott Goodyear now talking to the safety team. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, checking in with Derek Walker, he had radioed in from Scott Goodyear. They think it may have been the transmission letting go.
As we saw him come off his speed on the front stretch and then down to the inside. No physical indication, and that would help you believe that it's transmission.
Yes, transmission or an engine, we guessed, and powertrain somewhere. What happens a lot of times with the transmissions here is where the track we talk about it being rough. When you see all the patches, it's because they have edges on them, and that's what gets the transmission. It's a sudden jar.
You see Nigel Mansell in the pits. He has now, of course, moved into second with Scott Goodyear's demise.
So the yellow's out while they try and get Scott Goodyear's car. There you got a glimpse of it sitting down in the first corner off of the track and back into the pit area, though it doesn't seem that there's anything they can do for a broken transmission in the short time that they will have here. 114 laps are complete in the Miller Genuine Draft 200.
As Indy cars become more and more aerodynamic, the designers are constantly trying to streamline the chassis. At the back of the car, they now have a smaller engine package to work with. So what that means, they can in fact make smaller body panels that fit very tightly around the engine. What that does, that allows more air to come back around the back of the car and of course over the rear wing, which provides more downforce and faster lap times. But that does cause a problem. Not when the car's out on the track circulating, but when it comes into the pits. Because the bodywork fits so tightly, in fact, there's hot engine components that can bubble the paint or maybe even catch the bodywork on fire. Now, what they used to do was have a very cumbersome big air pump and a big old hose that they would put on top of here to blow air through when the car came into the pits. But they have something new now, just a small fan. Let's just bring the fan right to the car, similar to what you would have on a computer. Just place it right on top. Turn it on, and it blows air, keeping those engine cover parts from, in fact, catching on fire. Now, the interesting thing is this idea was conceived by an IndyCar mechanic while he was working at his computer. So now we know that Indy cars are not only designed by computer, in fact, they're cooled by them.
If it were just a...
He came in, got the routine service, lap 117. That means he's not going to be able to go the distance. He'll have to make another stop. But the thing they like in the Penske camp is that the car is in perfect shape. Let us also update Mario Andretti. They had changed the entire rear shock and spring units. It was a six-man job that took several minutes, but Mario is back on the course. Let's go to Jack.
And to run so well and so strong, and now Scott Goodyear, you're out. What put you out?
Well, we think it's something to do with the driveline, transmission, or what have you. It's a shame. McKenzie car ran well. I was happy all day. Second set of tires went on there, just backed us up. They weren't working very well.
About tires, Scott, everybody seems to be having some problems. What's the concern?
Well, this morning, those first set of tires we started on were perfect. The second set, we knew we had a problem with. They're a lot slower than we anticipated. So third set, we're good. We wanted to go racing with a third set.
Paul? And on the track itself, Fittipaldi, Paul Tracy, and Nigel Mansell all charging on the leader of the race, Robbie Gordon, as he works his way through traffic. Tracy moved up into second place. And now Tracy in second is charging alongside of Gordon. And Tracy sticks his nose in front. Paul Tracy back to the front.
Now remember, the difference that we have right now is Robbie Gordon right there in the black car is the only one that didn't pit of the fast cars during this last yellow. They're still going. Boyd has decided to go for a two-stop race on that thing. He's the only one. Everybody else that's fast is going to have to make a third stop.
Tracy has led more laps this year than any other driver, and you can see why. He has a very aggressive style, and he likes to get to the front.
So Paul Tracy takes the lead away from Robbie Gordon, while at the same time Mario Andretti peeled off and headed back into the pits. Apparently whatever work they've done on that car has not been satisfactory. So the top of the order is Tracy, Gordon, then Raul Boesel, and then Nigel Mansell forced back into fourth place now, followed by Emerson Fittipaldi. But look at Tracy as he has to handle up traffic. He comes up on the back end of Al Unser Jr.'s car now.
Yes, and he's working hard. Remember, Tracy has got another pit stop to make, but he's got fresh tires. He should be able to go real fast right now, Paul.
That fresh tires, that was the difference when he passed Gordon so quickly. Don't you believe, Bobby?
Oh, absolutely. No question about that. Fresh tires right now in the Milwaukee Mile is the hot ticket.
Paul Tracy puts 8th place Al Unser Jr. a lap down now, as Boesel closes on Robbie Gordon and Fittipaldi closes on Nigel Mansell. We'll keep an eye on this battle. Battle for fourth, Mansell, Fittipaldi.
That's what he sees in his mirror when he looks back, Paul.
But what matters is what's in front, and it's slower traffic. Mansell has to pick his way through it. Fittipaldi is looking for a line. Mansell gets down low. Fittipaldi decides that works for him. He's going to try it as well.
Now, some days the drivers pick that traffic good. Milwaukee is probably the best example of where you can either be famous for saying, boy, you really worked the traffic good today. Sometimes you work it bad. Often, I think it's a lot like going to Las Vegas and gambling.
But I'll tell you this, there's more traffic this year than in the past because so many cars started the race that were mechanically very sound. And there are more cars running now, just as we saw last week at Indy, than you would expect. A lot of traffic as you see Emerson taking a look at Nigel Mansell.
Still 22 cars in the run, only 3 out. Goodyear with the transmission, Kudrave with the engine, and Johansson with his accident.
This is the first time that Mansell has really been under attack. He has been the man moving up, but of course Fittipaldi appears to have a good setup for this stage of the race right now.
127 miles now complete. Nigel Mansell runs in fourth.
And right behind the rookie, Adrian Fernandez, racing for the Gallus team. He had a wonderful show here last year, but he is not experienced on the track, and I think I hope you'll see him get out of the way and let the battle continue.
Fernandez has been the fastest of the 3 Gallus cars all during practice and qualifying, Jim. He's from Mexico. He's the only driver that we have in the race from Mexico.
Fernandez currently runs in 9th place. The view backwards again from Mansell's car. Leader of the race is still Paul Tracy. He is not in contest with anyone. Robbie Gordon runs 2 seconds back in 2nd place. Then Boesel, then Mansell, then Fittipaldi. Still all of those cars well within attacking distance of the lead.
You can see when Mansell comes out of the turn, he looks at Fernandez and another car, both of them in different groups, and he says, where am I going to go?
The other car is Arie Luyendyk. You see the red car on the left of the screen there. Of course, Arie finished 2nd last week at Indianapolis. Up until that point in the season, Arie had a miserable year, and he's going right back to having a miserable year right here. He's not doing well at all.
Fittipaldi now alongside Adrian Fernandez. Makes that pass, continues his pursuit, looking for room alongside Luyendyk. So Nigel Mansell, you ride with him. He runs in 4th. Paul Tracy still leads Robbie Gordon. We'll be back with the Miller Genuine Draft 200 after this message and a word from our ABC station. 36 miles complete in the Miller Genuine Draft 200. Paul Tracy is out in front. He got to this position with a tremendous set of passes. Now look back in the field as Paul Tracy makes first his move on Nigel Mansell. Sweeps around Mansell very much like Mansell swept around in the first turn in Indianapolis last week. And then Tracy sets his sights on that black number 14 of Robbie Gordon. Using traffic, both of them go to the inside. Tracy looks for high side room, traps for it behind the slower car, and Paul Tracy picks up the lead of the race just that quickly. A nice set of passes.
The great drivers pass. I know that's an obvious oversimplification, but it's why Michael Andretti was hired by Team McLaren. They have an instinct for getting by people and getting by them in a hurry, and that was a beautiful example of Paul Tracy's passing.
And Gary Gerald, Paul Tracy is having a magnificent day thus far.
Paul, I'll tell you, it's amazing because perhaps the most unhappy driver in the morning warm-up half-hour session was Paul Tracy. He didn't like the way the car was going. They were calculating on some changes.